Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving. And I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a T-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know.
He's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
How did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Hello, what's cooking? Hope everybody is doing well. This is your host, Billy, and you are back for another episode of the Log Talk Podcast with Pert Near Outdoors. So thank you all for coming back, and thank you all for continuing to listen. It's been March was a great month for us, so first and foremost, thank you all for your continued support, and I hope that we're bringing you some good entertainment and that you're enjoying what we're talking about and who some of the guests have been. And we've got a good lineup continuing to come down here, and excited to get to turkey season. Should be fun. So we had a great time doing podcasts during deer season, and I don't think turkey season will be too much different. We're going to probably try to do an edition of Breeding and Radio again. So stay tuned for that as we get a little bit closer. And we've also, if you've been following closely, we've been doing some of these live podcasts on Facebook, trying to broadcast there. So the last one we did a couple weeks ago was much better than the first one. And this week I did one personally with the guys from Hunters Creek Outdoors. And so we had a little technical difficulties in the beginning there with trying to do it on their page instead of on Pert Near's page, because it was primarily for them. We ended up actually ending it and then firing it up on ours because I had it figured out from the week before. So we did that on our page for Hunters Creek Outdoors. A lot of good talk about turkey hunting, and I posted that up as a podcast. I was recording the audio on the back end and put that up as an episode. I think I posted it on Friday of this past week. So check that out if you'd like. Just kind of a shorter episode, about an hour and 10 minutes, but a lot of good turkey talk in there, and good advice from those guys on how they approach getting after thunder chickens in the spring. So that is that. But yeah, so we're excited for the month of April and May here as we get fired up with spring outdoors adventures. So this past week had opening of trout. So I know a lot of people had a great few days. It's been solid weather around here in Western New York. So I have had no fish on the line. I've been trying. I'm a rookie and I'm trying to figure it out. But there's been a lot of success around me, and seeing a lot of people having a lot of success on the water. So that's good to see. Deer scouting is something that I've been taking full advantage of the time I have right now. I may never have another period in my life where I have this much time to just get out and walk around. And it's been a great opportunity I've been throwing my son in the backpack or riding around in the four-wheeler, and we've just been having a great time together, and had success finding sheds too. I think just in this last 7 days since the last podcast, I think I found 4 more sheds and a couple good ones in that. So I'm pretty excited about what that is showing me, that there's some good deer running around and should be a good year coming up, and also getting the opportunity to just, pick out a small chunk of the properties that I'm hiking and just focusing on those small areas. And I think that's why I'm having a lot of success finding sheds, because I'm not just wandering all over the woods. I'm selecting out a quadrant per se of the property and just just back and forth and walking deer trails and just analyzing everything. So been really cool. Been using the tracking feature on Onyx to when I'm on a deer trail, I turn the tracker on so I can map out where the deer trails are overlaying with each other and, marking scrapes and good rubs and beds if I find them. So we've got starting to put some good intel together for this upcoming fall. So that should be fun to see how some of that unfolds here for us. Run down the list on some things I want to hit on. Both of those live events that we did on Facebook, I've downloaded those videos and I put them on our YouTube channel. So if you head on over to YouTube and search Pert Near Outdoors, we have a YouTube channel which we're gonna hope to put more stuff up on at some point. So we have a bunch of video, nothing of real great quality, but we've got some fun home family video, hunting videos that we think would be pretty fun to put up on there. That whether it be squirrel hunting from when we were kids to some youth turkey hunts from back in the day when Dad and Jimmy used to videotape all their turkey hunts. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. It's just a matter of time, and we'll be putting stuff up on there. But head on over and check that out. And on our next live, we're probably going to do a live Q&A for turkey hunting probably in the next couple weeks, maybe towards the end of April. And we're going to try to stream that on YouTube as well. So keep your eyes peeled there. We'll be using YouTube more as we move forward here. Next, I wanted to hit on. I'm gonna share a post that Dan Johnson from the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast that he had. He put up a post. I think it was Saturday, kind of challenging everyone and bringing awareness to the effect that this whole COVID-19 issue is having on non-for-profits and conservation organizations, because they rely so much on people's donations. And right now, for obvious reasons, everyone has tightened up a little bit. And coming out the other end of this, once this is all over with and behind us, those organizations are really going to be depending on people like us to help support them so they can continue their causes and continue doing what they're doing. So Dan is running, I'm going to share that on our page, like I said, the video of him talking about it, but he's doing a kind of a little bit of a social media challenge, which is Cash for Conservation, hashtag Cash for Conservation, that just kind of challenging everyone to write a check or spend some money with your conservation group or your non-for-profit that you support. No matter how big or small that charitable donation or that purchase is, it goes a long way. So whether it's buying a membership, or if it's actually writing them a check for X amount of dollars, whatever you can handle, every little bit counts. And I think this is a great time for our world to come together and everybody kind of band up and help support that. So I will be sharing that, and I would definitely encourage everyone to, if you do participate, to put something in your story and hashtag, maybe whatever the organization name is. So let's say it's NWTF, say, made a donation NWTF today, hashtag Cash for Conservation, and tag Pert Near Outdoors in that, and we'll share that in our story to highlight your efforts out there. So greatly appreciate that. That rolls into the next thing I want to hit on quick. Had a few people reach out to me about wanting to be pro staff with Pert Near Outdoors. So I want to identify something here, which has been, one of the main reasons why we started the whole Pert Near Outdoors is, Pert Near to us, it's pretty close, or you're pretty much pro staff, almost shot the big one. We try not to take ourselves too seriously. And for us, pro staff, at the end of the day, you've probably seen us hashtag Pert Near pro staff, and that means pretty much pro staff, almost pro staff. And everybody in our minds, if you're out there doing the right thing, you're hunting hard, you're fishing hard, you're hiking hard, whatever you're doing, as long as you're doing it the right way and you're helping spread the message and get people into the outdoors, you are Pert Near pro staff. So if you want to start hashtagging, I know I've had a few friends, if you start hashtagging, Pert Near pro staff, we want to support you, and we'll send you some stickers and maybe a koozie or something like that. We don't have, all this merch and there's no money involved. This is a for fun thing to try to encourage everyone to get involved and to get outdoors and have some fun and not take themselves too seriously and lose sight of why we do what we do in hunting and fishing and the outdoors. So tag us. We watch that tag. So if you tag us, we'll make sure we either share it or reach out to you and give you a high five or thumbs up. And we appreciate everyone's engagement there. And it's at the end of the day, just building that community and that involvement that we can all have a group to rally around and not feel like we're doing things for one reason or another. So that is that. And I think that is enough out of me. That's a 9-minute intro. Too much talking from this guy. I'll be doing plenty of it here in the podcast. So hope you enjoy it. This week is with Fisher Neal. He is an actor, professional actor from New York City, and he's got a pretty interesting story. He is the hunting actor on Instagram, if you've seen him before, and also a writer of an article that was in the Backcountry Journal about getting people into the outdoors and hunting in this past edition. I was actually just reading that article and was like, holy shit, that was Fisher. I can't believe that he's on here, and I'm going to be posting a podcast with him this week. So pretty cool dude. Check him out, and a lot to learn from a guy that is interacting with as many brand spanking new hunters as he is. So enjoy. I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy and wash your hands, but just keep fading them. So Fisher Neal, what's happening? Nice beard.
Thanks, man. It's a good time to let it grow out.
Yes, it is. So on the horn with me today is Fisher Neal, the man behind the Hunting Actor Instagram page. And I've been following along with you for probably about a year now. And I was like, it's about time. I need to reach out and see if I can get you on the podcast and find out exactly what you're up to. And so thanks for jumping on with me today. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm just excited for turkey season to start so I can get the heck out of my house.
Yeah. So you're getting ready. You were saying tomorrow is Friday the 27th, and you're heading out of state to get turkey season started early, huh?
I thought that's what I was doing, but I was wrong. For some reason, I thought that Tennessee season started on Saturday, and my dad was like, no, man, that's youth day, so I'm going next week now.
Oh, you're not young enough, huh?
No, I'm not going to pass for 16.
No, not for a second.
So, yeah, I'm stuck here for another week, but then I'm getting down, and I'm going to spend probably a good week in Tennessee, hunting Middle Tennessee, and then some in East Tennessee, too.
Nice. Do you have experience down in Tennessee hunting, or?
Yeah, I grew up in there.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. I'm from Knoxville originally, and there's not that many turkeys around there, but Middle Tennessee, where both my brothers live and where I've got some family, there's a ton of turkeys out there. So my little brother's got a really good couple of spots on public land, and family have a farm down there that's got some birds on it. So there's a lot of opportunity down there. I came home with 3 birds last year.
Nice. What is the limit down there? Is there a limit?
4.
Or 4?
Yeah.
Nice.
4, and it's amazing how much like easier it is down there than it is in like Jersey. Here you got to buy a permit that's specific to a zone and only valid for 5 days. You know what I mean? So like if you want to hunt the whole season, you got to spend $100 on permits.
That's in Jersey.
That's in Jersey,
Okay.
yeah. Whereas in Tennessee, like your basic hunting license is like 4 birds anywhere in the state.
Right.
So yeah, it's cool down there.
I've been to Tennessee one time for business. I went to, of course, was Nashville. That's what most people's exposure is to Tennessee, but just a little bit of driving around we did, it seemed like a pretty interesting area.
Definitely. It definitely is. I mean, it's beautiful. You don't have to get far outside the city to be in really beautiful country with lots of wildlife.
Yeah. So what are you all about? Because following along with you and not knowing anything about you, it is quite like mind-boggling. The things that I see. So I guess kind of like, where do you live? What do you do for a living? And then what the hell are you doing outside of what you do for a living? Because I think those two worlds kind of intermingle a little bit with what I'm seeing you doing on your Instagram channel.
Definitely. So I live in Jersey City, New Jersey. which is like basically, it's honestly like a sixth borough of New York City. I'm right outside Manhattan. I live here. I came here initially because I'm a professionally trained actor. I'm in all the unions and I have professional credits on Broadway and television and stuff like that. So it's hard to say exactly what I do for a living because sometimes I'm doing that for a living. Sometimes I'm guiding people. Sometimes I'm writing, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, I'm not easy to define.
No, definitely not.
True. So like basically the short version of it is, you know, I came here after getting a master's degree in acting 7 years ago and, you know, was working food service jobs mostly between my acting gigs and hated that and was just looking for any way that I could make more money and doing something that I actually loved. And I'd had so many interactions over the years with people who wanted to learn to hunt, you know, like other actors who thought this was like the coolest thing they'd ever heard of. Once, you know, some people like in this world would assume trophy hunting, but once they realize that I'm eating all the meat, they're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, and suddenly I'm the coolest person in the room. So I knew that I just thought in a city of 8 or 9 million people, there had to be at least like a couple thousand who'd be willing to pay and interested enough to learn to hunt. So I built a website and got it optimized. So if you search, you know, learn to hunt in New York City, then people find me. So, you know, that basically has turned into a full-time occupation over the last like 5 years. And now it's to the point, yeah, I mean, I'm doing it full time and it's awesome.
It is. So explain kind of what that, as you were getting that up and running, you know, it is two worlds colliding where you have, you know, and this is from, I'm a New Yorker, but I'm an upstate New Yorker. I don't have any experience of the city. Our impression of the city is that it's a very kind of an anti-hunting culture or a very unaware of our culture outside of the city in the more rural areas where hunting is a regular way of life. So as you were kind of getting in, you know, moving, you said you're from Tennessee, you know, from a more rural area, and you moved to this highly populated place. How was that for you transitioning into that area? Because you were not like everyone else. You know, you're in this world of acting, which is a certain type of person, or I assume that. I shouldn't make assumptions, but it's not necessarily the same mold of what you are cut from.
Yeah, I'm not like the other children. It's true. But that's true in both of those worlds. You know what I mean? Like you go into that acting world and there's almost no one who hunts. So it's kind of the same thing for me, no matter which side of the thing I'm on. But to answer your question, I mean, the interesting thing, I had a similar impression that like, you know, going to a city that there would be a concentration of like anti-hunting sentiment, and it's true that there are a lot more of those people here, I think, than there are necessarily in the suburbs or rural areas, but the majority of people are very rational, you know what I mean? And the interesting thing to me is that a lot of people, a surprisingly large percentage of people have this snap judgment assumption of hunting as being, if you're a hunter, then you're probably a trophy hunter. And trophy hunting means that they imagine you like killing things just for fun and then leaving the meat to rot in the woods, like some kind of, you know, like Dances with Wolves, you know, with like buffalo meat scattered around, you know, and like once they talk to an individual and realize, oh, you're hunting with a bow and you haven't bought meat in a grocery store in 15 years, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard, and I think that's great.
Yeah. So,
you know, and that is, I would say, a majority of the population who has that point of view. You know, there's so many. The biggest one is Michael Pollan. This book, Omnivore's Dilemma, I think is like something that really changed the trajectory of people's ideas about hunting and meat agriculture. in terms of like what's the most healthy and ethical, honestly, way to be like, if you're going to eat meat, what's the, best way to treat animals. So, I mean, that's actually a really strong point of view in the cities. It was a huge culture shock, though, to move here, particularly because, like, have the ability to have the stuff to even hunt on a personal basis is very difficult.
Yeah.
I had to choose where I was going to live. And, as an actor, I'm low income. For this area, if you're not making $100,000 a year, like, you are low income.
Right.
So it's like, what I can afford, where I could actually have enough space to have, I need a car, and I need, at least a couple tree stands, places for some guns, a freezer for meat. And so learning how to deal with all that, and also all the regulatory like hurdles that you have to get through, was definitely a huge shock. But I've obviously,
you've overcome that. Yeah, you figured out a way around it, and that was one of my number one things I wanted to understand is, so you get somebody that lives in it's hard enough. There's enough barriers to entry to hunting as it is. And then you take someone who lives in an environment like New York City or Jersey City, which is it's a very large populated area. There isn't, my mind starts going to like, where do people go to shop for hunting gear? Where do they go for an archery shop or for a shooting range to practice? Because, I live out in an area where I can just literally drive down the road or even in my backyard with my bow, just go out and practice. And you can't do that sort of stuff. So what is that like? What does that look like for somebody that lives in your area and is interested in getting started in the outdoors?
It's very challenging for people who live in Manhattan. There actually is there's a pretty high quality shooting range with a pro shop in Brooklyn, and I think they maybe also have a branch in Manhattan. The limitation, though, is that you can only shoot 20 yards. Mm-hmm. So I have a number of clients who've come from there, and they're well practiced at 20 yards, but as any experienced hunter knows, you need to be practicing 10, 20 yards beyond what your max range is going to be in order for you to really be able to succeed at those distances in a hunting scenario. So, they come to me thinking that they're ready to hunt after having spent a year shooting indoors on a 20-yard range. And I find that, 9 times out of 10, they're not ready, when they're put to the test. But for that reason, I push, and for other reasons, I push really hard for all my clients to start with crossbow, because that's the kind of thing that you can learn to shoot that thing in an hour and be good, and you don't really need to have like constant practice and stuff like that. You don't need a range. So things like that are ways that you can deal with it. I mean, I've found the closest place where I can practice with my bow is about a 20-minute drive from here. Mm-hmm. There's actually a park in a nearby town where they allow shooting, which is awesome. You can actually back up to 50 yards there.
Nice.
You just have to, bring your own target. So, yeah, I mean, it goes on and on with that sort of stuff. Having guns is a big issue. If people live in New York, it's a real hassle to like get a license and then permits to have a gun, even just to have one in your home. Like, that's one of the reasons why I live in Jersey instead of New York. Like, if I moved into New York City, my deer rifle, all of a sudden I have to spend like months and hundreds of dollars getting a permit just to have it in my house.
My God, yeah.
Where in New Jersey it's still quite strict, but it's not like that. You know what I mean? I can still have them, and if I have a hunting license, I'm still allowed to take them out. You have to have a permit to buy a gun, and at a certain point you just go through the process to get that, but it's not that expensive. You know what I mean? And it's a reasonable thing to get most of the time.
Yeah. All things that until we sat down to have this conversation, my mind started spinning as like, man, it's just so easy where we are if you want to get into this thing compared to some of those challenges down there. What about Hunter's Ed? Are folks using online methods of getting their education to hunt?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is that we have an apprentice license in New Jersey. That actually was the biggest change that took my business from being really a hobby to being able to be something that I could really do. Because and this experience, along with a number of other experiences, has really like crystallized for me how much convenience and ease of access is the main reason that hunter recruitment isn't where it needs to be. It's because our like fishing game has really not caught up with how people live their lives for like 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But so one other thing though that's really cool that a client actually taught me is that it's possible now to take hunter ed entirely online, no matter what state you live in. A lot of people don't understand, because every state has universal reciprocity for hunter safety certificates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every state has their own rules about how you get a hunter certificate from that state. In New York and New Jersey, there's all the in-person classes that you have to go to. But in Pennsylvania, if you're over 18, a non-resident can take their online course for firearms and have a firearm certificate mailed to you, no matter where you live. And then that certificate is valid everywhere.
I did not
That's
know
25.
that.
Yeah, that's $25. But for most people, that's way worth the time that they can like do it 2 or 3 hours at a time at home, as opposed to like,
Shit.
investing the whole weekend. And Idaho has a bow hunter course with the same deal. You can get bow hunter certification through Idaho. So that's the way the majority of my clients are getting their hunter ed cards now.
That's interesting. I had no idea. So I knew that there was some online education services out there, but I never thought about it from that angle that, New York State, if you were to get a New York State license, that, you have to go do those in-person deals. But so if I'm understanding what you're saying, if you're somebody, and you don't have to live in New York City or New Jersey City, or you could just be Johnny from, middle of nowhere, New York, and say, I want to do my class online, and you could take the PA Hunter's safety course, and then you could use that in any other state.
That's right.
No shit. That's a hot
Yeah.
tip right there. I mean, because there's a lot of people that I know it's a barrier for them to find the time. You got kids, you got work, you got sports, you got all this different stuff. If you could do it at your pace.
Exactly. I just wrote a whole article that's going to be in the Guide Fitter Journal explaining as much as I can, like the types of discoveries like this that I've made and witnessing how they impact my business and seeing how they could impact the entire industry if they were just, if some certain changes were made, like that is a huge one. The number of days that are available for a beginner to start out is also a huge one. In New Jersey, I can hunt with a crossbow from middle of February to from middle of September to middle of February. 5 solid months of archery deer hunting here. And it's amazing the impact of being able to like capitalize on people's impulses when they want to go. Everyone thinks of, this is a big hunter safety thing too, right? It's in hunting season when they think, oh, it's hunting season, I want to try it. And if there's not an apprentice license, that's impossible. So that's the first really critical step that has to be in place. But also, if it's not a state where there's crossbow hunting, you can really only start with a gun in the gun season. And the gun season's, some of the states, I think in PA, it's like 6 days.
Yeah, it's not a lot of time, yeah.
Even in the long states, it's maybe 5 weeks. So, and that's huge because just this year, I had a guy on February 9th reached out to me for the first time, said he wanted to try hunting. And on Saturday, the 15th, which is the last day of the season, I took him on his first deer hunt. And you got to think about from my experience before, I was literally getting dozens of emails from people before we had the apprentice license who were saying dude, this is so cool. I've been looking for this. Can we go bow hunting next weekend? And I would have to explain hunter ed, and I never heard back from any of those people. I'm talking zero, right? Now I say, yeah, man, when do you want to go? Book me. And it makes a huge difference. And those people are returning. They're not, I mean, some of them are just going once and not, going again,
Yeah,
but
it might not be
a good
might not be
percentage
for
of
them,
them.
but yeah.
Exactly. Or they're like, I had a good time, but it's not like going to be a part of my life, whatever. But, maybe 30 or 40% of those people, maybe 50, I'm not doing the metrics. And it's a small sample size, but they're going again with me year after year. And it's like that will translate to the entire, you know, world of hunting. You know what I mean? Like the
100%,
fact that
yeah.
people are not able to try it easily is really big. Um, yeah.
Interesting. Man, that's something that I had no idea about. That, I'm sitting here and I've got friends that, I want to get into hunting, and the time barrier is it, And you bring up, the length of the seasons. I think that there's always this push and pull with crossbow, and there's a lot of archers that are very passionate about the negativity that crossbow has and on the traditional or regular compound bow hunting. And you know I don't know. I don't even have an opinion. My opinion on that is that I don't care. My opinion is I want people out there hunting. And
Yeah.
I think we all get so, in this world we live in, everybody gets so, jerked up on, you got to do it the way we've always done it. And it's like, buddy,
Yeah.
if we don't change the way we're looking at this, if my dad is having a hard time, pulling his bow back and he wants to use a crossbow because it makes it so he can get out there and be effective in the woods, then yeah, like 100%. Or if I have a friend who's 33 years old and wants to buy a crossbow and he can go in his backyard and shoot it 10 times, like you said, and feel confident to go out and shoot a deer at 20 yards, and that's his way into the sport, and then he gets the bug and says, "Oh my God, I want to buy a compound bow and I want to be shooting all the time." Like, you have to, I think, as a industry, or as a way of life, hunting, if we don't start thinking about these things, and discovering some of the stuff like you just brought up about how to get your license online, like find these ways to make it easier for people, then we're gonna watch the hunting numbers continue to go down. And that's a big part of what we're about here, is we want to try to share the fun parts and share the different tips and tricks on how to get into hunting if you are not already. So those are a couple of good ones, there that you just brought up. I appreciate that, because anybody listening to this anywhere will take something away from that point about how to get your hunter safety course done. That's sweet.
You know what occurred to me, like a couple of weeks ago? I was just sitting around, I don't even know what I was doing, thinking, and I realized that like there could be so much opportunity opened up by having a mentorship season, because I feel like a lot of people might be reluctant to mentor, for on the one hand, because during regular season, you don't want to give up your own opportunities. And in many cases, to teach someone, you kind of do have to like give up some or all of your opportunity to go. And that's why we have Youth Day, right? And I think also about people's busy schedules and things like that. Like, what if we just, added a week where only people with an apprentice license are allowed to hunt? You know what I mean? And add youth into that as well, or add a whole month. You know what I mean? You could probably do that in many places, without having much of an impact on harvest, but massively increase the number of available days that an apprentice could try it out. And also you're creating all this. I mean, as a person, I would think, who's an avid hunter, you've got a whole month where you can go, and you could mentor somebody. You can't hunt yourself, but like you can still be out there. You can scout more. You could take them to some new spot that you want to explore and experiment with. I mean, I feel like there's so much possibility there.
Mm-hmm. Is now that the mentor, not mentor, the Jesus, what's the word? The type of license you were saying that you've got in New
Apprentice.
Jersey. Apprentice. That's not a super common thing, I don't think, is it? I've never heard of that.
It is now. Actually, most states have it. What's weird is that, I mean, I guess because it's not really relevant to them, a lot of existing hunters aren't really aware of it. But The thing that's interesting is that it's different in every state. You know, in some states it's very limited what you can hunt with the apprentice license, or the time frame in which you can hunt is limited. And there are still several states, like New York is one, that don't have it at all. I would say New Jersey is probably one of the best in terms of what it is, because it's no different from a regular license, except that you have to have a mentor there. The only limitations are you can't bear hunt and you can't do the nighttime predator hunting. Otherwise, it's, perfectly the equivalent of a normal hunting license.
Okay. Interesting. And I hope that's something that maybe, down the road here in New York State takes a look at, because I think that's a great. So in order to get your apprentice in New Jersey, what does that look like? What do you have to do is there just a shorter, like an online course or something you have to do, a form or something to get you?
The whole point is that you don't have to take a course.
Okay. But you have to be with a licensed hunter? Is that how that works? Okay.
Exactly. It'd just be like, if you think of like a youth hunt, a youth under a certain age can't hunt without a supervisor present. It's the exact same concept.
Okay.
And they just upgraded the system in New Jersey now, so you can buy it online and print it off at home for that apprentice license.
Cool. It's all good stuff, and I think that's those are some things I know in New York State that I'm active with backcountry hunters and anglers, and one of the things that we're engaged with the DEC on is trying to help with recruitment of instructors, and that's something that they're looking at. There's I've met a couple of the people, one virtually on a conference call, and then also met a girl out at the Western New York Sport and Travel Expo, Jen, and she's actually the coordinator for Region 9, which is out Buffalo way, the western half of the state. And, they're all they're young and they're ambitious, and they want to find new ways to get new instructors in. But I'll tell you that the biggest challenge with that whole thing is the amount of time it takes to become a certified instructor. And, it's definitely, it's something to think about. I want to help however I can personally, but there's only so many hours in the day and so much time in your life. And, to take a year, even though it might only be a couple days a year, to shadow someone and go through that. And I'm going to probably try to get her on here to talk about what that looks like to be an instructor and how much time it is, if somebody's interested. But it's an amount of time to get into it. And my mind's just spinning around this whole online course that you talked about, because that's just such a good option for people. And then if you're a new hunter that's looking, whether it's using someone like yourself who's a guide to help, take those skills that they learned in the online course and learn how to put them to action, because you that you can't figure out how to hunt a deer, or figure out what the patterns are of them, what they're doing, what the sign looks like. You really need to be on the ground to do that. So whether you find a mentor, a friend, or you hire somebody like yourself to take you out there and learn how to do these things, it's just a matter of getting that license. Like, that's step number one. That's sometimes the hardest thing to do. So yeah, there's a lot of good talk going on around this stuff, which I think is super important as we move forward here, and what everybody's trying to get accomplished to keep hunting relevant. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. So so guiding, so how was that for you? Are you just certified? Is that kind of similar to the hunting license thing? Are you just certified for New Jersey, or is that count for other states as well?
Well, the great thing about New Jersey was that there is a lack of regulation here when it comes to being a hunting guide. I was able to just start offering to guide without having to go through any kind of regulatory hurdles. The only the guiding license that's required here is if you're doing like fishing or duck hunting, you need to have a Coast Guard captain's license to operate the boat. But yeah, so in New Jersey, I literally just was like, I'm an expert. I'll be a guide.
Nice.
But I did go ahead and take the step this year to do all the requirements and take the test to become a certified guide in New York State, so that if I want to take people up there, that I'll be able to.
Cool. What does that look
and,
like time wise? What does that program take to get set up as a guide?
It's kind of a headache, honestly, but it's fine. It's like you need to take first aid and CPR course, and you need to take a water safety course, and that's the one that's really tricky to find because it needs to be like you need to have like a Red Cross certified course, and mostly what you can find is like $500 swimming instructor courses. You can't really find just like a basic safety course. I ended up having to pay for a private lesson at a YMCA in order to fulfill the requirement. And then you go and you take a paper test that's basically like the Boy Scout manual from like 50 years ago. Is still like all the questions and answers on it. So it's the kind of thing where it's like you don't really have to know that much, but you also have to know a lot of real specific knowledge that's somewhat relevant, but not necessarily always relevant in order to get through the whole hurdle of everything.
Yeah.
And you have to have a valid current license to get it issued. So, I had to spend about like $500, just to have, just to go through everything and have that.
Yeah. I guess in the big picture, that's that's worth the investment for you. For it's your business, and for you to be able to, where you're located, to open up the opportunities to take people into New York State. There's a lot of you're not too far from the Catskills, and to run up to the Adirondacks and do stuff up there. There's a lot of opportunity right around there. So
yeah, I get the sense that some of my clients are more interested in having a wilderness experience than having like a high success rate experience. New Jersey is the, high density deer. We're baiting for them. And, like when the season's right, I mean, our success rate is over 50% per day.
Wow.
But, not everybody, people be like, man, I can hear the road. I thought this was going to be like I was on Meat Eater and we're like out in the wilderness tracking over miles and camping and stuff. And so, yeah, that and also like fishing trips. I wanted to open up the possibility to take people fishing or to go work for another guide company in the summer because, obviously the summer I'm not taking anybody hunting.
Yeah, it slows down a bit.
Yeah, though I've found success with foraging so far. I've been doing commercial foraging more and more in the last couple of years, and I'm starting now to offer like guided foraging trips because that's kind of a snowball like hunting. Once you get a certain number of species under your belt, it reaches a point where you can kind of go outside almost any time during spring, summer, and fall if it's been wet, and find something that's cool and edible.
Yeah, that's something I have zero experience with, but it seems like, anybody who's into it is like they're head over heels excited about going out and foraging. So, yeah, I don't think I need another hobby. Jesus, I'd be kicked out of the house.
It's good, though. It overlaps with hunting. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like turkey season and morel season overlap. So if the birds aren't calling, if they're not gobbling, I can just cover miles and look for mushrooms. You know what I mean? And I can incorporate other mushroom hunting into scouting for deer and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of overlap.
Yeah. Yeah, you can kill two birds with one stone for sure when you're out there.
Exactly.
I like me some wild berries, some blackberries. Find a patch of them, I'm sitting down hogging out. But so how land-wise, so how does that work for you? So I didn't realize you guys could bait there. And I wasn't sure from following along with you and watching, I wasn't sure where exactly, whether I was assuming you were on Long Island, just based off of some of the pictures, and I, figured you were around the city. But so you're in New Jersey. You guys are you hunting? Do you have like some private land you have access to that you're hunting, or how does that work?
I'm 90% hunting public land.
Okay.
I do have a couple of private spots that I've been able to get access to. Usually sometimes by luck and sometimes by hard work knocking on doors. But I'm trying to harvest such a high volume of deer that I couldn't just have like one private land spot that I sit on. So I'm like constantly scouting and trying to find new places so that I can rotate and not hunt any spot more than like once a week, ideally. So the main reason, one of the main other reasons that I moved to Jersey City is that, you know, this is pre-OnX. I was like looking at Fish and Game website and then like Google searching, you know, the driving time from this WMA, you know, or this state park to Jersey City. And what I found was that there's a ton of public land within an hour drive of Jersey City. Like there's almost nothing until you hit about 45 minutes away. And then between 45 and 75 minutes, I don't know how many exactly, but I would guess there's, you know, between 1 and 200,000 acres of public land. It's a lot.
Wow.
You've got like Newark Watershed, which is like city of Newark land. It's like 30,000 acres. That's an hour drive. You know, there's WMAs, there's all this stuff, and the population density of deer is high. You know, the bag limits in most of this area are unlimited antlerless, and the archery season is, as I said, 5 solid months, and baiting is allowed. So it's basically please kill as many as possible as quickly as possible is the rule.
That's nuts. What are they feeding on? Is it because I know in New York, if you go up into the Catskills, they have, you know, some of the watersheds from New York City, and those are probably similar terrain types. They're very like they're heavily wooded, kind of more mountainous. You know, there's not any ag or anything. So what are the deer feeding on in those areas? You have a lot of oak and things like that.
Well, in the big wooded areas like Newark Watershed, the density levels are lower. But the thing about New Jersey is, well, the western and central and southern parts of the state are heavily agricultural. You know, they're more akin to like Pennsylvania than they are to upstate New York. And the places that are closer into the cities, there's massive sprawling of suburban environments. And as many people know, the suburban ecosystem is perfect for whitetails. You know, it's the oak savanna with shrubs. And if there's not hunting taking place there, which in many cases there's not any hunting at all taking place because it's either literally too close or you just can't get permission, you have these like highly productive sanctuaries that the deer have taken hold in, and so they get these massive densities. We've got towns in New Jersey that have 100 deer per square mile.
Jesus.
And then, you know, so if you can get on a 20-acre piece of public land that's adjacent to that, you can have a field day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a ton of these areas. There's also, you know, a lot of corporate campuses around here. So there's other types of sanctuaries like that. Most of these corporate campuses, they lease their land for agriculture. So you've got like a 900-acre farm growing corn and soybeans where nobody's allowed to hunt.
Jesus.
Yeah. And
that's
I can tell you
just
that
something
stuff,
to see.
Oh man, it's so frustrating because you drive by herds of deer out in the field at noon, you know, and then you get somewhere that you can hunt all day, and the deer are nocturnal, you know, at certain points in the season. I'll tell you what, I've learned so much about deer and like their behavior and their relationship to pressure because of this dynamic and these things being right next to each other.
Right.
You know, it's like you get into places where the deer are super nocturnal, and before I experienced these areas where there are tons of deer in sanctuary, I thought that maybe it was more natural for them to be so nocturnal and things like that, but it's not the case, man. Like when they're not being pressured, yes, the big bucks, you almost never see them except for during the rut out in the daylight in the field, but like all the other deer, man, like, yes, they're most active at dawn and dusk, but they're out all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no question that late night, that nocturnal stuff is directly related to the amount and the kind of hunting pressure they get. Like during our bow season, I can see deer consistently the whole time, and then as soon as gun season opens, forget it, man. Especially if you're in a place, they love to do drives here in Jersey. That's like the big tradition, right? But what happens is these like public lands get pushed, 2 or 3 or 4 times a day during that first 6-day season. And as a result, the deer just go into complete hiding. They even vacate the premises. You know what I mean? Like I could put out bait that usually gets eaten. Everything gets eaten in like 2 or 3 days. Like I'm talking 50 pounds of corn, just bam.
Wow.
And then you do it right after gun season opens, and it just sits there.
Yeah,
they're not even.
They've packed their bags. They're out of. They know where they're getting pressure and where they're not. To your point, and
exactly,
if they have to move a couple miles away to get away from pressure, they'll do it for that period of time.
That's right.
That's so fascinating, and I think my vision of when somebody says they live in Jersey City, all you think of is massive populated area. Same thing with New York City. And you just assume once you get within an hour of that area, that's what everything looks like. And it's just so not the case. And you get down by where you're talking about going to hunt, and even, 40 minutes, even just the other side of the river from New York City up over into, Rockland County and that. I mean, it's freaking middle of nowhere. But you have those differences in habitat. And then you talk about the pressure, it's just wild, and you can see it because that season is so long that it spreads out the pressure, so you're not seeing everything crammed into a 1 month time period. You're looking at 5 months. These deer have to live, and you have 5 months worth of hunting. Not everybody is a diehard hunter that they're gonna hunt every single Saturday, Sunday, or take time off for 5 months straight. It gives the deer a break.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So what's been I'm interested in like what some of your most interesting experiences have been, or with clients of yours and people you've gotten to take out there. What are some of the most exciting stories you've had, getting people out there for the first time and seeing them have success for the first time, even just seeing something out of the ordinary too. I bet you that there's been some people shocked with things that they see.
Man, there's so many things. I almost don't even know where to begin. One pretty wild story involves a guy who hired me. He was one of these guys who's like got his own compound bow, but he's not hunted before. The fire engine go by.
Something's burning.
So he's got his own bow. But he's never hunted before. He thinks that he's good. He wants to hunt with his own bow. He's not going to use the crossbow. He mentions that he's a little like nervous about heights, but he wants to do it anyway and challenge himself a bit. And this turned out to be a significant issue, actually. When we got to the tree stand, I'm hunting mostly out of like hang-on stands, and I'm carrying my sticks in and out so that people don't steal my stuff. And he gets halfway up the sticks and like doesn't want to continue. Like this guy is scared for his life. And it took until it was after shooting light by the time he finally made it into his stand and on the platform. You know what I mean? And so we get like settled in for a few minutes, and this is mid to late, I think it was late October, and a nice cold morning. So I do blind calling at that time, so I let out a couple of grunts and a snort wheeze, and like not 3-4 minutes later, I look out to my right, and there's a real pretty like 3-year-old 8-pointer coming straight for us. But it's to his, I know that deer is almost certainly going to come in front of me and behind him, which isn't that big a deal, right? If you know it's coming. I said, hey man, there's a deer coming. You got to stand up so that you can, shoot. And he just says, I can't. I'm like, what do you mean? You can't? There's a deer coming. Like, just stand up. You're not going to fall. But, unfortunately, when you deal with someone who's got a genuine phobia, there's no amount of like rationalization that you can do to help them. he he wanted to be helped, but still was just paralyzed by fear. And unfortunately, I was not armed, and this beautiful deer walked 10 yards broadside in front of me, with him just sitting there. Yeah, it hurt, man.
Did he at least get to see the deer?
I don't remember. I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he was able to turn his head, but I don't remember for sure. I couldn't tell you the number of times that clients have blown opportunities by moving too much. People, they see these deer in the suburbs and stuff while they're driving around, and they falsely perceive all whitetails to be like that, and to not be noticing, this movement with your head, or pulling your hood back off of your head while they're looking directly at you.
Yeah.
I've had so many people blow hunts that way. So to the point now that I've made it a part of what I teach, that I get very detailed about explaining, okay, if a deer is looking directly at you, you must be completely still. I'm talking, don't breathe. You're a statue, right? And I go through the whole thing. If it's looking away, what can you get away with? And that's definitely helped. Definitely helped. What else have I seen that I can think of?
Would you say that's one of the number one, when you take somebody out new hunting, is that one of the number one mistakes you see people making, is just moving too much? Yeah,
you usually get some percentage of people who realize that it's about stillness, and they're awesome. You know what I mean? They are perfectly still for the entire hunt. They barely even shift. But it's not so much that people are too fidgety during the hunt. It's that, when the deer is there, they're the safety, this and that. And it's bro, you gotta be, you gotta be still.
Yeah.
You gotta be quiet. In the early season, people get away with a lot because we have the trees to cover us, and
you got leaves and you got foliage. But you get into the later season, and you're sitting up in the tree with nothing around you.
Or you get an older deer, that's a 2 or 3 year old buck. They're immediately, every good buck I've had an opportunity on in the last 2 or 3 years has been ruined by a client.
That's fun, though. You're getting a ton of, the amount of experience that you get, and I'm sure a lot of you taking people out helps you see things in a different lens, and even maybe make you a better hunter too, just because you're seeing stuff, and, people are probably pointing stuff out to you that you're like, oh, I never thought about that. It's just something, a different lens.
Yeah. The biggest thing I'd say for me is just experience. The number of days that I spend in the woods has skyrocketed. And that directly translates to better understanding of the deer, where they're going to be, when, how they're behaving. I have my finger on the pulse of the rut. You know what I mean? Other people are guessing as to what's going on. They see this happening on one day and that happening on another day. And I know exactly what's going on. I'm like those dudes on the TV shows. They're they went into lockdown today, so now we're in lockdown mode. I know that stuff because I see deer running around like crazy, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So that's been really cool to experience that. I have picked up some cool tips, like the Hunter Ed thing. Also, gear tips sometimes I get from clients. I recently switched to using a rope man on my lineman belt when I'm hanging stands and stuff, instead of using the Prusik knot.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
okay. Yeah, it's a little the rope man ascender,
yeah,
that what they call it?
It's a rock climbing device, yeah. And it gives me one-handed operation of that thing. I can easily and quickly loosen and tighten, and that's so much better than the Prusik knot. The Prusik knot works, but I'm hanging so many stands, and
constant up and down
totally
and adjustments, yeah. And just, you don't think about it, but it's those little adjustments that can save you 30 seconds a stand, or make it just that much safer. The opportunity for you to have something happen when you're going up and down trees, how many times a day,
I know, man.
You're making it that much safer that ascender is a pretty sweet little, my buddy Dallas just got one, and I change what I call him every podcast. This is going to be a joke when he hears this, because I just called him my buddy. I called him my brother-in-law, my cousin. Yeah. So Dallas just bought one of these Ascenders, and he just tried out my saddle for the first time. I have a tethered saddle. He tried that out last weekend. We were setting up some stands, and he was showing me the Ascender and how much easier that makes just the adjustments of, lineman belt. And I'm probably going to get a couple. I'll get one for my lineman's belt and one for my actual, tether for up on the tree. But yeah, it's just little things like that. That's pretty sweet to find different little hacks that can make things quicker and safer. It's double-edged sword there.
Yeah, for sure.
So you must have a wild story of somebody like freaking out when they shoot their first animal. Because you're telling me stories of people that literally they're taking their hunter safety course, and within, sometimes within a week or two, they're in a tree stand with deer standing in front of them with a weapon in their hand. Like, that's a really quick transition for somebody.
A lot of these people have not taken hunter ed, and they literally learn to shoot in the morning and kill a deer that evening.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
A lot of people. That's what my standard, introductory thing, I call an apprentice hunt. So, I teach them to shoot in the morning, teach them to scout midday, and then we do an evening sit somewhere and try to actually kill one. And, I have a lot of people who get their first deer right off the bat. And, there's a remarkable number of, a range of how people react to it. I've had some people get really sad, and quiet, and even more, even more quiet than they expected that they might feel. Do you know what I mean? Whereas other people are just crazy excited. And some people seem to have no reaction. They're just like, okay, I did that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you're in such an interesting spot. I just find this stuff fascinating because you're seeing, I've only had experience with one person doing, helping them shoot their first deer. And that was an incredible experience. And you're doing this for a living, frequently, high frequently, not 300 or 400 a year. You're doing, how many people are you taking out a year? You probably have some return clients,
but I'd say, I think I took about 50 people last year between all the hunts. It's some deer, turkey, and a few squirrel hunts. But all told, I think I have about 50 clients.
Yeah. See, it's just the volume of different things happening. That's freaking nuts. So I'm guessing you've got some people that you've actually kind of built a rapport with. Is anybody you've kind of become basically hunting buddies with that you've really hit it off and made new friendships?
Yeah. It's always a tricky line to walk because I want to be friends with a lot of people, but I also need to make sure that I maintain a professional status so that I can earn money.
Right.
One in particular, one of my earliest clients, in fact, the first person to hire me using the apprentice license, he lives out in an area of New Jersey where he can have all his own stuff, and he's gone on to be, a successful hunter in his own right. And we've become buddies and gone hunting together a few times. And his backyard is actually one of the best spots that I have. Unfortunately, he's moving in June.
Oh, no.
So I'm going to lose that spot. But he's in one of those neighborhoods where it's just completely overrun. And once or twice a year, he's let me bring a client in there when I've got somebody who's hunted maybe, a few days and not had an opportunity is guaranteed pretty much 90% success rate in there. He and I become buddies. We fish together some and hunt together. It's cool. Yeah.
It is cool. That's one of the best parts of the outdoor lifestyle is that you build some, with you doing that with that many people, you're built, whether you want to, you keep the relationship professional, but, you're building a bond with that person that, whether, you could compare it to doing other things in life, whether going skiing for the first time or, going hiking or canoeing or something. But that's a pretty emotional thing for people. So I'm sure that there's a lot of, tight relationships that are built in just a very short period of time because you're that resource for them. And, it's pretty neat that you have the opportunity to make that kind of an impact the way you do. I'm envious of that because I want to help people, but there's only so much time, it's not my career to go out and do what you're doing. Like, that's pretty awesome that you've made a career out of that. It's interesting. Now, last thing I wanted to touch on with you, I seen you had a pretty wild adventure going over in the Middle East to hunt, correct? So tell me a little bit about that and how that trip came about. And I think I haven't had a chance to watch the whole video, but I see you put a video out of that hunt. So I guess kind of give a rundown of kind of how that whole thing came together and where people can find that video.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to go and hunt in southern Pakistan, in the province of Balochistan. But I'll say, don't call it the Middle East. They're very sensitive about
sweet
that.
Jesus. I was figuring I probably should have addressed that a little bit differently.
That's all right. That's all right. It's a good thing to make people aware of. That's South Asia.
Is it really?
Basically, yes. It's India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, which should all be referred to as South Asia.
South Asia, okay.
I think Americans mistakenly refer to it as the Middle East because it is a predominantly Islamic country. That's probably why, and because it's right next to Afghanistan, which I guess is Middle East. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Fun
well,
fact.
no, that is a fun fact because, sitting here, I relate that to Afghanistan, but then I look at a map, and I always look at the map of that area, and it just like I get just like super confused because in your mind you hear all these things on the news and you see all this stuff and you relate it to those cultures in those areas. But that's very interesting. I appreciate you breaking that down because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So it was it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life just to go there, and also to hunt there just took it like to level 1000, in terms of the uniqueness and amazingness of the experience. It happened because I met and fell in love with a girl, and our relationship got serious enough that it was time for me to go over there and spend some time with her family and get to know them. And it just so happened that her father is a hunter and has been for a long time. And he offered, they have this amazing thing over there. I talk about it in the video a lot, which is that this culture of caring for guests and like honoring guests and basically bending over backwards to do anything for anyone is because they are a guest. It's way beyond what we do here. So like this guy literally set me up with like everything that I could ever dream of, to the point that I feel like bad almost for taking it because I was given so much. And I had the opportunity to go into this remote part of southern Pakistan and hunt for Urial sheep. They set it up as like a conservation area in the 90s, and they've got it now to the point that there's this healthy, strong and growing population. They're using trophy hunting to fund, hiring local villagers to protect the animals and also to work as guides and support staff for these hunts. And they're using it to build infrastructure projects and stuff. So, it really is the ideal model that we think of in terms of like hunting as conservation and growing wildlife populations there. They also have ibex, Sind ibex, and chinkara, which are like a little antelope. And I got to go out there and, I went up onto a mountain with like 3 guys who don't speak a word of English. And we hunted sheep, and it was just freaking amazing, man. I couldn't talk about it enough. I made a video of it. I put it on YouTube, and I also shared it on my Instagram. The higher res is on YouTube. Okay. If you just search like Pakistan Urial hunt, there's not that many of them. If you search my name, I think you would find it. Okay. I also put it on my Facebook page. I have a Facebook page for the business, and I linked to that. YouTube doesn't allow me, Instagram doesn't allow me yet to link, to outside sources. I'm not a big enough platform. But yeah, man, it was amazing.
Yeah, and just looking at some of those pictures, it's such an interesting hunt that you really can't wrap your head around here. You have your adventure hunts here, but that looked like such an incredible adventure. And for somebody who's, yourself, who's not from those areas, to go there and have what an incredible experience to have them give you the shirt off their back essentially and just give you everything that you need. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting point you make that like you almost feel bad because they're being so giving and so kind, and that's awesome to hear. Like that it warms my heart to hear that, you had that experience to go over there. And, as Americans, we live in kind of a polarizing world where you have these images and these views of certain places. And that's pretty cool to hear such a positive experience from somebody going over there doing that, because, there's biases and stereotypes that come, unfortunately, with just the way of the world and the way of what we live in, what we hear, what we see on the news every day. And I think the other point I wanted to make is just, the trophy hunting conservation model. Not very many people get the opportunity to go and see that, that in real life in that sort of situation where, you go over there, you talk about they made that area like a refuge or some kind of a conservation area where they're trying to repopulate these goats that were probably harvested to almost being gone, correct? Like they're probably almost killed to the point where there was none left. And it was because they put a value on the animal and allowed the communities to be hired as guides to protect the animals as well as to take people out there and selectively harvest them. And that's what's helped the population, rebound and flourish. And that's the same thing we've seen here. If you listen and watch videos to learn about like the elk, populations and wild turkey and deer and, everything like that. It's the hunters and the conservationists that are the ones that really make the impact to revive those populations. And I think that's a great story to be told from something like that you experienced, because it's a different world and it's a different species that, we can't really relate to, but it's a different type of place over there. Without the law and the regulation, those animals didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. It really comes down to like the local people getting invested and deciding that it's the best thing. From the leadership all the way down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is that a huge part of the culture there in those communities? I shouldn't say huge, but is it a sizable amount of the economy and the culture there, taking care of those animals and having people come in to do the sort of stuff you did? Is it a big part of it, or?
That I don't entirely know. One thing that I know for sure is that they're really trying to grow it and find, hunters who want to come. And so I'm working with them. I'm going to maybe start, outfitting if I can sell some hunts to take Americans there to hunt. But they're mostly agricultural people. They're raising grazing animals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So to a lot of extent, there's had to been concessions made to them where it's like, okay, we'll compensate you if the deer or the sheep graze your land or whatever. But yeah, I don't really know how much of a big part of the economy it is. But I know that it's like they were showing me things like I talk about this in the video too. One of the infrastructure projects they've done recently is they built a reservoir. And so not only is it a bunch of, reliable fresh water now in a very arid place, they've stocked it with a whole bunch of catfish, which are a South Asian carp species, and they're feeding them. And so these guys are going out every day and catching, big ass fish that they're allowed to go and sell at market.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And they're allowed to use the water for personal use and stuff like that. So, I believe that is a direct impact of the hunting stuff, but I don't know for sure if that's directly from hunting or if that's just more part of the overall, larger plan that they're working on, building roads and all that kind of stuff out there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to say something earlier. You were talking about, like going there and the fear of going there, because I didn't feel like it was safe for me until I fell in love with this person, and she helped me understand what the reality is there. And it was such an incredible experience to go to this guy's house, because I went there and I was spending time with her family, and then like the very first night that I was there, he's like, we need to go and meet the Sardar. So the Sardar means chief. And so this guy is basically a close friend of her dad's, and is the reason why, basically the person whose land we were hunting on and who's giving permission and providing the permit. But this guy's like a national level politician as well. He's a member of the leader of a major political party. So, we go over to his house at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night or whatever. And, there's like 8 guys with automatic rifles, dressed with, how you would imagine someone who doesn't like Americans to be dressed, waiting for us when we got there. And then not really smiling much or being friendly when we get out of the car. And it's just crazy to go in, then we went into his house and sat down and chatted and stuff. It was like, I was never in danger, but it was like, wow, your mental picture of who that person is and what they mean is so different than what necessarily the reality is. I was a guest in that dude's house. Those dudes would protect me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If something happened, they're the opposite of my.
So
enemies.
they were guards or some kind of security or something?
Yeah, I mean, he's a major politician. He needs armed security, like any major politician needs armed security, especially there. It is still, it's safer than most people think, but there definitely is still danger too. It's not Mayberry.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just I don't know, for me, going through that into this guy's house and being around all these people was another incredible layer of experience to the whole thing, And of course, then we sit down and we're just talking about hunting. You know what I mean? We're just
That's crazy. That is so crazy. Yeah, it's hunting is hunting. I don't care where you're from, what you're hunting, or apparently, what you're just where you're at, because you can sit down and you can have that common ground of that same passion and desire. That's pretty cool.
Totally. And the desire for conservation and all of that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on here today, and I'm glad we connected, and look forward to staying in touch with you to kind of watch your adventures and maybe get you on again to tell more stories, especially maybe after this turkey season. You're going to get a bunch of new hunters out to turkey hunt, I would suppose, right?
Yeah, hopefully if the virus doesn't create too much of a problem for us, we'll see.
Yeah, no kidding. Are you all locked down there, and how's New Jersey handling it? I haven't really heard a lot about that.
Yeah, we're in, I guess what you would say is a lockdown. Basically they're please don't go out unless it's for something essential, like to get groceries and stay socially distanced. So I don't entirely know how it's going to apply to my business because I figure it's still going to be going during turkey season, but I don't know.
Right.
And yes, when we're out in the woods, we can stay 6 feet apart, but a lot of these people I'm giving a ride to. So is it that if they drive themselves, it's fine? You know what I mean? The rules are vague. Hopefully I can just run my business and not have a problem. But, and I mean, who knows at this point, right?
Nobody does.
And people who can afford to hire a guide are the type of people who own stock or have income that's maybe in question. So, but at the same time, everybody right now is probably thinking, dang, I wish I knew how to hunt and forage for my own food. So maybe I'll see a huge influx. I really have no idea what's going to happen.
Dude, it'd be so interesting to see what happens in the next few months for everybody. This is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
So
it's anybody's guess what's going to happen.
So where can people find you? I guess give your plugs for you said you got a website, your Facebook and Instagram stuff. Where can people find you?
Yeah, my website is learntohuntnyc.com. And, that's where if people are interested in booking me or just learning about me, they could go. I'm most active on social media on Instagram @huntingactor, as you mentioned before, is my handle. And I'm often active there with tips and things or what I'm up to and this and that. And then I do also have a Facebook page for the business if people are, all Facebook. And I can't thank you enough for having me on, man. It's great. Man.
Yeah, I hope maybe we get you some business, and if nothing else, I learned a few things from you too. I'm excited to share, get this out there, but get hopefully some people encouraged to utilize that hunter ed thing. I'm fired up about that. That's a a little, a fun fact that people can use to get them out there a little bit quicker. So.
Heck yeah, I'm glad to share it.
Yeah, man. All right, we'll go knock 'em dead down in Tennessee and stay healthy, my friend.
Thanks, man.
All
You
right.
too.
See you, Fisher. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.